Maphilindo was a proposed non-political confederation of three Southeast Asian countries, Malaysia, the Philippines, and Indonesia. However, after signing a series of agreements to develop it further, it dismantled after a month. So why did it fail? First, let's take a look at how the idea of Maphilindo was created. In the 1950s, there was an idea of uniting the Malay race, a term used to describe Austronesian people in Southeast Asia. It was then proposed by Filipino national hero Dr. Jose Rizal, who believed colonialism was the reason why these three countries were divided. He actively promoted his ideal by creating and officiating events designed to unite the Malay people, and this proved to be a success because in July 1963, Filipino President Diosdado Macapagal arranged a summit in Manila with the three countries to sign a series of agreements that would develop this idea into reality. But was it really to unite the Malay people, or was it something else? Let's rewind 6 years earlier to 1957. At the time, Malaysia wasn't formed yet. Instead, it was still British colonies of Malaya, Singapore, Sabah, Sarawak, and Brunei. However, Britain was decolonizing because they were exhausted after the Second World War and lost its legitimacy in South and Southeast Asia. Nationalist support had also increased across the region. So Britain, I think it's time. The first to achieve independence in the region was Malaya on August 31, 1957 through diplomatic negotiation with the British. Prime Minister of Malaya, Tunku Abdul Rahman, then put forward the idea to merge the five colonies, and this would form a new country called Malaysia. But the Philippines didn't want this because they had claims in the region. The contested area was North Borneo, now known as Sabah. They stated that in 1878, the territory they claimed was the state of the Philippines back then was leased to Britain. Now that Britain was withdrawing, North Borneo or Sabah was theirs. However, Malaya and Malaysia now believed that the lease agreement was a valid transfer of sovereignty, which means they didn't own it anymore. Therefore, it was up to the residents of the territory to decide whether they wanted to join the Malaysian Federation or not, and a majority of them did. There's more history to this, but that's a story for another time. So the Philippines devised a plan. They proposed Maphilindo, a way to resolve tensions between the two countries over the contested area. A summit was convened in Manila in July 1963. But before I talk about what was to happen in the summit, let me explain why Indonesia also opposed the formation of Malaysia. There were two main reasons why Indonesian President Sukarno didn't want this. One is that he wanted to unite Borneo, expanding Indonesian territory. And the second is that he believed Britain was trying to maintain colonial rule through so-called Malaysian independence, which he was extremely against. So in December 1962, Brunei faced a revolt by the North Kalimantan National Party, backed by the Indonesian government. They were against joining the federation and wanted to be independent. However, they were crushed within days by British and Gurkha troops, and this began hostilities between Indonesia and Malaysia. In January 1963, Indonesia imposed economic sanctions on Malaysia, and the months that followed were Indonesian troops raiding and sabotaging Sarawak and Sabah. That was until May 1963 when Sukarno and Tunku Abdul Rahman held talks and agreed that a vote would be held before the federation was formed. If the people of North Borneo supported the federation, Indonesia would not stand in the way. However, the Tunku proceeded to sign the London Agreement a month later anyway, settling Malaysia's formation on August 31, 1963. Things were escalating, so Sukarno attended the summit in Manila. This hoped to defuse the situation. Leaders of the three countries signed the agreement known as the Manila Accord, which aimed to exchange views on current problems concerning stability, security, economic development, and social progress of the three countries. However, in the summit, the primary issue discussed was determining the attitude of the Borneo territories towards their inclusion in Malaysia. Secondary was the creation of the loose confederation. In essence, Indonesia pressed for a referendum in the Borneo territories, while the Philippines preserved and furthered their claim to parts of North Borneo. So the summit never really focused on uniting the Malay people. Although Malaya indicated a tentative willingness to delay the formation in favor of a referendum, it required the full agreement of all parties concerned, including the United Kingdom. But the UK opposed any delay and could not accept a referendum under any circumstance, since this would call into question the validity of elections already held in the territories, indicating a probable majority in favor of Malaysia. They were adamant about it too, and even put pressure on the Tunku to withdraw his tentative willingness of a referendum. Macapagal urged to overcome British insistence on holding to the August 31 date, warning that this was the only way to keep the summit meeting from ending in failure, but it was to no avail. This is where it all went downhill. On September 16, 1963, Malaysia was officially formed, and the Philippines and Indonesia refused to recognize a new federation. They severed diplomatic ties with the country, and Indonesia even announced the Crush Malaysia campaign, ending any possibility of a confederation. Maphilindo failed because it was used to hinder the formation of Malaysia as opposed to uniting the Malay people. But what do you think? Could Maphilindo have worked if these motives were put aside? Also, if you want me to talk more about either the North Borneo dispute or the Indonesia-Malaysia confrontation, let me know in the comments.